Hi everyone, and welcome to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast. We're coming to you from BMC Engage in Las Vegas. I'm Kirsty McGowan, and I'm here with Charlie Betts.
Kirsty.
Carlos Casanova.
Hello, Kirsty.
And it's our pleasure to be chatting with Barry Richards from Sanofi.
It's my pleasure to chat with you.
Well, Barry, so, thank you for coming. You and I have known each other for quite a few years now, and, we've, grown with this industry. And I know that you've had a variety of roles over the years. You've seen a lot come and go, and your organization has grown, acquisitions organically, quite a bit. It's got to be challenging to to take that and roll that out. Can you speak a little bit to what you're doing now and how you're addressing that, how you're helping the organization with that user experience and the request? I know you're in the request space now. Right. How's that kind of come over the years?
So I have to first say that I took the position somewhat reluctantly. I kind of had, I wouldn't say I had an easy job, but I had a job that was very comfortable for me. So there was not a lot of stretch. I had a great team, and we managed hundreds of projects a year from an IS perspective. But then when the opportunity was presented to me, I thought about it. My manager at the time said no to everyone that asked. He never asked me. Because I probably would have said no.
Right.
But then I thought about it and said these opportunities don't come that often, especially in a company of our size. So I took advantage of it. And that was 3 years ago, and I'm glad that I did, because it's a lot of fun. When you've been in a corporate environment for a long time, you tend to get very comfortable, very jaded in many ways, and you don't always have the opportunities. So sometimes you just have to take advantage of them when you get them. So part of what I do now is I manage the SRM practice globally for the organization.
And how big is that?
Right now we have about 90,000 end users.
That's good size.
Yeah, significant.
And we started, I think, when I first came in, we had somewhere in the tune of around 4,000 to 5,000 service requests.
So definitely get in a little bit at the ground level on that one.
Yeah, it exploded in certain verticals within the company that were that had more maturity, because we're made up of a lot of different companies. In one area of the company, they were very much into self-service. Right? They had their own model, they had their own processes and practices. And I think that a large amount of the ITSM platform came from the things that they did. Right? But one of the challenges was to now take something that was regional or focused on a particular business and a particular vertical, and now expand it globally, so that it's available to everyone. And that was a huge challenge.
So speak to some of those challenges. I mean, we've talked about the again, the experience that individuals are having. How do you address your organization is worldwide. Right. You have things that already going into it because of the expansion, they're accustomed to in this region, but not accustomed to in that region. But now you're rolling out a request platform that has to address the nuances of a Spain versus a Portugal versus a France versus Mexico, whatever. How do you do that? And,
so for me, I think that what I needed to do is I needed to find a way to take ownership of my responsibility. Right. So I kind of needed to figure out what I didn't know, right? Because I knew there was a lot of things that I perhaps assumed. And as I began to look at what was in place, I realized that it was a lot more complicated and diverse than I had realized. From the highest level, we have, at the time, 9 different languages that the portal was published in, that we then needed to be able to manage. I then realized that everyone's view of the portal and of service requests was different, depending on where they came from.
So just making your life a little easier. Come from 4,000 to 90,000 and all different perspectives.
Right. So the first thing that I did, so that I could have an understanding of what I was taking on, is I wrote a gap analysis that took about a month to go through everything that had been done, to look at the original vision statement from the company, and then to look at what was currently in place, the as is, and find the gaps. And they were significant, and it helped me to de-nest everything that was very technical with the portal and the technical IT view of it versus the end user view, which in reality was never really 100% represented. So it was driven by the technical need to show off and showcase our services. But now, we now had to look at end user feedback. We had to think about how we were going to assess what the end users wanted and how to manage that. So as a part of that gap analysis, I think that it was too complex and too deep to share at an executive level or a C-level with the company. So I talked to a few people that were used to presenting to the C-level folks to get some feedback from them. And they basically helped me to build a 5-deck slide to present to them, of which one was a cover page and one was a table of contents.
That's the sort of powerful deck I like.
That's actually a deck you have a prayer of getting through. So,
Right. But I think that the one thing that it allowed them to see, right, was first acknowledge as your leadership team, is this still your vision? Is this a vision that you want? Right? Because I really can't help you. It's not my agenda. It's not my vision. Right? But I felt it was incumbent upon me to find out what that vision was, and then to make sure that I was leading them in the right direction. Right? To assess what was being done in the industry, to assess what we had done so far, to see exactly what the next steps would be. You know, because we were a technical organization. A lot of the feedback I got about the portal was technical. Like, why is it on this platform, and why is it this, and why is it not that? And I was like,
you're missing the point.
Exactly.
That's actually not what you want to know.
Right. So I think that I felt a lot more comfortable after having that conversation, because I felt that I now had the foundation to move forward with them. You know, because I understood it a lot better.
I mean, I love, two of the words there that I kind of keyed on was leadership and vision. And I think that's where a lot of organizations that I work with and have over the years, that's where they're failing. Because if you don't have that, I always say, you can get to that end and deliver an amazing result. If it's not the result they need, it's wrong.
But I think the other part of that is the feedback. So you can have a vision, you can have, your leadership can think or know what they want, but then to be able to turn it around and have them and reflect to them and show them what it's going to take to get there. What changes that are not just financial need to happen. Organizationally, we may not be structured to support that. So it's a challenge, because from a tool perspective, there's one tool. From an organization perspective, there's 7, 8, 9, 10 organizations.
Well, that's getting back to something you said earlier that kind of piqued my interest, is that the organizations, people view the portal in different ways. Can you explain a little bit more?
So I think that, I think in just talking to different people around here, when you were running in an autonomous nature and you're running in a nature where you're focused on one particular vertical of the business, right? You tend to structure everything based upon the processes and procedures that you have in that area of the business. And part of our industry is regulated, obviously, pharmaceuticals, but all of the areas of the businesses are not regulated, right? So your commercial affairs has a different point of view than your R&D does, than your vaccines division does. So you needed to understand what everyone's needs are, and then be able to figure out how to address them. So one of the challenges that we still face is that when you bring all these areas together, to get technical for a second, you have 30 service requests for the exact same thing that are provisioned 30 different ways. Right? So at that point, you can then present that information back to the organization. You can't fix it. You can present it back to them, so that they now understand the undertaking of what it takes on to advance, whereas they could never see it before, because they only saw the area,
just
the vertical,
a subset of it.
Right, and everything was perfect for them. Right, so the pain that they felt when everything came together was they got a lot of complaints,
Yep.
and how come I can't see that, and how come I can't have this, and this doesn't work for me,
Yep.
and behind the scenes, because we're built up with so many diverse organizations, we all have different policies, different procedures, and the naivety of me, quite honestly, was coming from North America, was like, well, just change them.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Just change them. Right?
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, it does,
Yeah.
but then when you get into the other foreign topics,
Yeah.
right, and realize that the change, although logical and pragmatic, is not easy,
Yeah.
and a lot of times the mechanisms or the catalyst, the mechanisms to make the change happen, they don't really exist all
Yeah.
the time, right? And then people don't know exactly why they're doing certain things, so they also don't want to investigate and put time into figuring out how to change it.
Yeah.
Because that's an accountability thing that doesn't necessarily come with the job all the time.
Yeah.
in reality.
Certainly sounds like quite a challenge that you've
No,
come up against.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I actually
Challenges are fun.
Yeah, for someone older that's been around, I've been in the company 20 years,
Yeah.
I was a consultant for a long time, to have the opportunity to do something new,
Yeah.
it's kind of fun, but at the same time, because of my background, I'm somewhat impatient,
Yep.
and I think that developing that patience and just trying to constantly provide feedback to the people that are asking questions is helping me
Yep.
deal with that.
Now, are you finding that the new tools and platforms that are coming out, obviously, BMC's announced a lot of new approaches, new concepts. Some of it's tool related, a lot of it is really more mindset and approach related, UX versus UI. Are you finding that those are helping you make these transformations and take these next steps forward, making that easier in your journey to, for your organization?
So me, from a tool perspective, I don't know how to phrase it other than the tool is not an important thing to me at this point in time,
No.
because it's not where our issues lie.
No.
Right.
Technically, we're in a good place.
Yep.
I have no issues with that. But as far as the new direction and leading the company to meet their objectives, the tool will play a small part.
Yep.
But the reality of it is that the organizational change,
Yes.
the restructuring of the priorities
Yep.
across the board to meet those objectives is
That's great.
what's much more important.
I mean, that is really, and the tool's an enabler once you've got the other things in place behind it.
Right. But I mean, from being in pharma, because of what we do,
Yes.
we tend to be a lot more bleeding edge in a lot of technologies
Yep.
that have nothing to do with infrastructure or
Yep.
IT, purely because that's the industry.
Yep.
Right. So digital to us was a priority 3 years ago.
Yes.
Right. So to see the infrastructure vendors all come together
Yep.
and now to address digital, what it does for me is just say, whatever decision is made, I feel comfortable that we're in a good place
Right.
to be able to manage that
Yep.
vision, right? Whereas 2 or 3 years ago, I was not sure, because all of our major vendors were not, they were still trying to figure out what unified and converged meant,
Yep.
and how to get all of their
Yep.
other groups that are very heavy to work
Yep.
together
Right.
to come up with solutions, So I think that when I look at what's happening now, I say, okay, if it's BMC, then fine.
Yep.
We're in a good position to do that.
Great.
And foundationally, I think BMC has the advantage because they already have the service management foundation, which is really what drives
Yep.
this.
Great.
And it's going to support us through the change.
Well, it's been a pleasure chatting to you this afternoon.
Oh, thank you.
And,
Pleasure chatting with you as well.
Yeah, we could have, it was a conversation that could have kept going, but unfortunately we have to call an end at some stage, but hopefully we'll get a chance to have another chat at some other
I
time.
look forward to it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.